Welcome, welcome to Sunshine and Transparency. My name is Tony Christ. Today we've done this podcast with Ishmael Mani many times. Today we have a special guest, Dr. Arun Jetli. Uh, he's an Indian philosophy doctorate. He's also well aware of many of the uh, sociological and psychological issues that are around today, and we're going to talk about one of them today. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jetli. Let him introduce himself, and we'll get going. Welcome, Dr. Jetli.
Hi, this is Arun Jetli. I would like to wish all the best to the viewers here. Tony gave relatively correct information on me. I have a PhD, not in Indian philosophy, but in phenomenology and neo-Marxism. However, since then, that was 1981, since then I have studied a lot of Indian philosophy, and now I know a lot more about it. In my dissertation, I didn't even have one quote from that because I was told that Indian philosophy didn't have much to offer, which was hoodwinking us anyway. But that's besides the point. Anyway, so let me chime on to our current topic over here. Okay, the fact that we have such a huge prison population, and a lot of it, as Tony correctly states, is because of poor parenting, which in turn happens because of the circumstances these children are born into. Not a very healthy, wholesome gestalt environment for having a happy and creative childhood in the first place. No direction, and as we all know, that most of your development happens by Tony thinks 6, maybe I think 8 or 9. Okay, whatever, around that age. And as a tennis teacher, I also know that what we teach children in a very young age, till the age of 12, 13, is a lot more relevant, and a lot of few things will change after that age. So I know the neurological situation is such that we must have children have the correct environment in youth from the age of 0 to 10, 12. That's what I think, at least that age. So I'm totally in concurrence with Tony on this issue. Now, it's one brief thing that I'm going to turn it on to Tony again. I have my own take on this, okay? If you want to find a real solution, like if I want to find a real solution in somebody's tennis game, I'm going to go to the roots of it. Okay, look, your forehand is structurally bad, so let's redo that, or whatever. Now, the child might want to not redo it because...
Excuse me, you also ought to tell them that you run a tennis academy and that
Yes.
they don't know.
Yeah, I ran a tennis academy. We've done a lot.
You've taught some pretty large tennis players.
Currently, my student Jason Levitt is coaching 2 of the best American tennis players. He was my student for years and years. But anyway, so the point that I'm making here is that I understand thoroughly the neurology situation. That what you learn at earlier ages, you take it as gospel. You don't need proof when you're 6 years old. Your parents tell you something, you think it's the gospel truth. And so that's my mindset. As we get older, we get more skeptical. We doubt everything, which is good, which is a healthy thing. But the situation is this: if you don't have the right nurturing at a very young age, the chances of you going foul are a hell of a lot more than if you do have the nurturing environment. Okay, so this is my take. Now the question is this: yes, it is a big problem in the United States, but we cannot attribute it either to political situation or to something that is an epiphenomenon of Republicans or Democrats or anything. This is the problem with those parties. They always blame each other for everything, and I'm out of this kind of thinking. Okay, now the thing is this. Let me explain something to you here. Epistemology is a theory of knowledge where I have to know how I know something. Okay, if my dad tells me at the age of 6 this is good, I buy it. That's gospel to me. I buy it. But how do I really know? I really know through critical thinking where and why what things happen. Now, please listen to this. I have a theory that everything revolves around a narrative. A narrative always can have a bias of the narrator, and because you can have a narrator, we're skeptical about the truth of that. So what happens is, I have a different philosophy of truth. They take 2 more minutes, then we're going to get to more interesting things. Okay, when I say 2 plus 2 equals 4, and Tony says 2 plus 2 equals 4, we're in the same world, talking about the same 2 and 2 plus 2. But if Tony says something on the stuff like, well, it is good to have foreign relations with Russia or not have them, and I say no, or vice versa, whatever. Now we have a conflicting truth. But the thing is, we both have narratives which we pass off as truths, and we have to do that. Otherwise, we can't survive in this world. We have to somehow assume that our narrative is truth so we can go forward with that. The biggest philosophy flaw in Western philosophy to me has been they are always pursuing perfection, that you have to be 100% right, correct all the time, like David Hume and all these guys, to make something relevant. That is a false narrative to me, because everything is, we all live in different worlds at different times. Even myself, a tennis player lives in a world where he performs well, the next day it doesn't perform well. He's in a different world. His inner being is elsewhere. My inner being is here. My inner being is there, depending on my condition. Even depending on my mood from last, I had a fight with my wife. So I am in a different world. We have to recognize the existence of my world and Tony Chris' world and Ishmael's world. Are we on the same? We're talking about the same world. Otherwise, our discussion, pretending to be critical, will not be critical. If I'm on a different world, he's on a different world, somebody else different world, then we will not have a congruent thinking at all. So this is my theme. Concept of truth is that we have to have narrative, because that's how we live our lives. And we also have to assume that our narrative is true. But we also have to assume that our narrative has a shortcoming and it could be false. This is what we have to understand. Now, here comes in my theme about what's happening in America. In fact, I would say that this may be happening in some of the other Western countries too. I'm not really sure about that. What has happened is, we as human beings, I'm going to put it very bluntly over here, we assume that we human beings have a soul, and that's how we live. I disagree with that. I think we are souls that have a body, which means this: when I am talking about a person, I need to talk about his soul. When my soul connects with his soul, this is all a narrative. I'm not talking about a soul sitting outside a body or anything like this. Is a narrative. Okay, my soul and somebody else's soul meets. I have to treat that as soul. Kant kind of understood that when he called, don't use people as things, but he didn't quite get it either. So what happens is, we are souls that have a body. Okay, now what happens is, the development of capitalism has brought a lot of wonderful things for us. So we forget a lot of things. We keep living in the world where body has a soul. Now, supposing we have this problem with poverty or something like that, our solution, throw some more money at it, because you're just a body. I'll give you extra money so you can go buy some food. Just leave me alone. This is the attitude. We don't want soul connection. We want a body connection. Okay, now I can't have all these poor people living in homeless places like they do in LA, like thousands and thousands of them under every throw some more money. Something else, throwing some more money. We have not had any genuine relationship with that person who is destitute, who's had bad background, who has had all these problems. We need a soul-to-soul connection. So, okay, we human beings need our existence to have a meaning, of which basic necessities are a part of that meaning. So my solution is this: we discard the Western. See, you look at the philosophers of the West. I'll give you examples: Hobbes, Mill, Kant. All these people, they take one little aspect of humanity and blow it up into absolute truth. Hobbes: we are always at war with each other. People basically hate each other. They need state to come in and mediate because they basically want to kill each other. That maybe he's partially correct, but he's also incorrect. See, ultimately, the relationship between the soul and the soul, and this is relegated to religion, which is theological, and you can't even discuss that. So to me, that is the biggest flaw that we have. We must consider souls as primary existence, body attached to it. So when somebody is really sick and hurting, we have to connect with their soul. What has happened there? And you want to create circumstances in which a human being, whenever she or he is born, at that very moment has this notion that, look, I'm a very creative, going to be happy human being, and this is what I need to do. And just filling my stomach and having a shelter, it's just one little part of it. That's not somebody throws my money and just stay the hell out. Los Angeles, I lived there for 6 years. The wealthiest place in the world. You have 15, $20 million houses. You go 2 blocks away and people living on the street. Now, who in the hell would think that's, I mean, it's not, I'm not being emotional over here. It's the fact that we just think, okay, maybe we should put more money into this, or maybe build a shelter. This is not the way to go. This is a fundamental flaw in our philosophy. Starts with guys like Kant, Hobbes, David Hume, and J.S. Mill. He's the biggest hypocrite of all time, J.S. Mill. This is a person that nobody ever criticizes. Okay, he wanted equality for everybody, and yet he supported the massacre of the populations in India. So why did he do that? Because maybe he wasn't even a hypocrite. He just has this thing that my narrative is the correct one, so I can kill thousands of people and justify it. Okay, so my point is very simple. He should have considered the narrative could be wrong, and the best way to do that is if you put yourself in the other person's shoes, not in his shoes, in his heart. Be him for a month or two. If you want to criticize any philosophy, be that philosophy for a month or two, and then come and criticize it. Don't criticize it only from the outside. That is so. Getting back to we're gonna get back into the topic. My point is from very early onwards. This is what we have to do. The long-term solution, short-term solution, we'll talk about right now. Yeah, go ahead.
Arun, so your point, one of your points is you have to treat human beings other than being simply material.
Right.
And you have to treat them as souls. And Ishmael, you want to chime in on this topic?
I think it's, yeah, no, I think it's real interesting there. And I think there are some really great points in terms of treating humans like a soul. So I'll give you an example in today's society where, and Tony just mentioned around humans and material, we don't value in today's society, we don't actually value motherhood. We don't value marriage. We don't value 2-parent homes. We don't value parenthood. There is no inherent value in that. We say we do. We talk about it. And as you mentioned, we could blame both sides or whatever. Take out the politicians with it. How we live, we actually don't value. And that sets up a society where when you no longer value motherhood, fatherhood, family, parenthood, community, it starts to fall apart. When your actions say that, when, as you mentioned, Arun, how you actually view people as souls versus material. And it starts early, how we actually value those things. And without that value, then it doesn't matter what a politician, it doesn't matter what the policy is. And as you said, you're either going to throw money at it or you're just going to try and cut and say people are lazy, one way or another, versus actually demonstrating and building a society that values those things, building a society that views people as souls.
I want to get your thoughts. I want to throw something out and get both of your thoughts on it. And when we're talking about very young children and forming their emotionality at a very young age, I'm going to give you an analogy. A caterpillar goes into a cocoon and comes out a moth, right? Now, if you try to help when you see them struggling in the cocoon to get out, and you poke a hole in the cocoon, thinking you're helping materially, you're helping them. Well, what you've done is when the moth comes out, the moth almost for certain will die because it didn't have the full time to strengthen its wings and its body
100%
against the walls of the cocoon to develop.
Absolutely.
So it's incompletely developed. And I think that analogy to me reflects what happens to many, not all, but a significant number of children in single parent welfare families and in just general single parent.
I think
They're
in
not
general,
developed.
not just single. It's not just single. It is now two parents, and I say this as someone as a parent with young children and seeing other parents as well, where again, when there's no value in parenthood, why are you going to do it? When society doesn't value, when society doesn't see it as part of your soul to actually be a parent, why are you going to go through that effort? I think we've talked about children and devices. It is very painful not to give your child at a young age a device to pacify them. It is very painful to deal with a bored child. That takes a lot of effort. And Arun, as you mentioned, so much happens before age 6 up until age 10, etc. And my generation, whether it's one parent or two parent, I see how we deal with our children. Do we let them play? Are they reading books or are they on the device? And that's part of it. Do they, have we set up school structures and school systems? And this is on the parents. And I actually blame the parents for this, not administrators or anything else, where, oh, you can't walk home half a mile until you're in 4th grade. Yeah, so I think about that, which tells me, again, and it's that analogy fits so well to me because it is very hard
about them walking home, which there's far less risk to than there is, say, the cell phone.
Absolutely, 100%. And the cell phone hits your analogy perfectly, right? You put them on a phone, they don't know how to be bored. They don't know how to be creative. They don't know what to do with themselves because they are pacified by a device. And to your point, once they get out of that cocoon, as they get older, they're unable to do anything.
Well, back to the analogy in 1 second, yeah. Ishmael. So, Arun, with that analogy, where somebody intending to help that that caterpillar develop into a moth pokes a hole in the cocoon, and that moth comes out to a certain death because it didn't have the time it took to beat its wings as they were forming into the walls of the cocoon and get the strength to deal with the real world. And that seems to me to be an analogy of what happens to many young, and happens more so in single parent families. It can happen in 2-parent families, but it happens. And I want to throw some statistics out, and then I'm going to turn it back over to you and Ishmael. We have single parent families, the government estimates 23%. We have up to 30% of the children being raised in single parent. We have 74 million children. Let's just use a round number, around 22 million being raised. Now, those 22 million, the rest of the world, incidentally, only has 7% in single family. Only 7. We're unique. We have 23 to 30. Those we also have 4 times the prison population. Those single parent children, when they grow up, 90% of them, they account for 90% of the homeless. They account for 80% of behavioral disorders. They account for 71% of high school dropouts. They account for 75% of chemical abuse, drug addictions. They account for 85% of prisoners.
Wow.
Are from that environment.
Jesus.
63% of juvenile suicides, 85% of rapes. Now, those are staggering statistics that are coming out of that single parent group. Now, if you dig deeper, there's a subgroup that's about 5 million to 6 million children where they're on welfare and they're not at all working, okay, not even part-time. And that group is even statistically worse than the whole group. So there is a connection that in that kind of a dysfunction. The government intends to do well by sending money, and these kids aren't given the same formative period that you're giving your kids, Ishmael, or that we had when we were growing up, and it's showing. And they're not only, it's not only the money, it's you're not giving these kids the same break you're giving your children, Ishmael, in a two-parent family, or the same break we had. And it's it's a cost to society. It's also a cost to the child. Now go ahead and take it from there and talk some more about it, you guys. Ishmael, what do you think?
I agree, Arun. I'd love to hear your thoughts there as well. I mean, that completely ties, and again, just I love the analogy because I see it every day. One parent house or two parent house with how we're raising children. But Arun, would love to hear from your end, especially when you think about the reaching the
Yeah.
soul of
Two parents aren't perfect by any means, but the thing is, there are two of them, and
Yeah.
and it's a big job raising a child. You know.
Yeah. See, this is what I have two grown-up children, and they're okay, but I'm not happy with them. Neither one of them is married. I wish they were, but they might have great kids. I love them, and okay. My I totally agree with you all, but I don't want to leave it at that. My theme is being a philosopher. Okay, I believe in a theme called ontological reduction, which means that you go as far back as you can to find out what the issue is. At first, I mean, it may or may not be understood or accepted by many people. So I feel very see, we have in our minds, according to Marx, this is an alienation. But I only partially agree with him on that. But I think it's much more than that. It is the way we are brought up. We have these notions that we will solve these problems by an empiricist theme, which historically starts with Occam and goes on. We want to show, we don't want to listen to the real deal. I feel that when I say that human beings are soul, we should act and think about that all the time. So when we see a person out with needles, and 21-year-old who's a homeless guy under the bridge in Los Angeles, first take him as a human being before you do anything else. Okay? Of course, he may have had a lot of issues. So once I do that, then I can take the next step. This is my solution: is that I mean, Tony said maybe you cut off the aid to the mother and stuff. The punitive measures are always there, I mean, fine, but you don't solve world's problems by punitive measures.
Well, no, my point is the government is creating this problem. In other words, there was a repeal by Obama of 407 of the Social Security Act, TANF, and it required anyone on welfare to be in training for a job and or help find them a job. There was a requirement. So welfare was a trampoline. In other words, you fell off the net and you bounced.
Right. I agree with you.
When Obama got rid of that,
Yeah.
it became flypaper. And today you have they're stuck on it, and it becomes a life. So, but the children, there's such a, and again, it's not perfect, but there's such a big advantage to having two parents over one.
Yeah.
And if they're self-sufficient, that young child is going to know it, and he's going to be emulating behaviors of the parent. So, if they're not, if they're showing no hope, no opportunity, that's going to be the conveyed to the child, and it's not healthy because children have to learn, have guardrails set up to exercise their aggressions in socially acceptable ways, like we have done, like Ishmael's done, and you've done, and I've done in our lives. We were blessed to have parents that gave us that structure that allowed us to do that. And it doesn't have to be the same way. Like you say, we don't agree on things, but the point is, we're pursuing a productive life. And so many of these other kids aren't. So go ahead, you guys, and take it from there and say say what you think.
Ishmael, okay, let me say this. Okay, I don't want to steer the discussion away from the main theme here. I always, like I said, I want to get to it's phenomenological, ontological reduction. How far can we go back to see how is our inner psyche in our society as a whole? We must look at them as souls. Means that from day one, we should understand when we see somebody else, how we can get into that person, not his shoes, like, what if I was in his shoes? No, get in his heart. Okay, how does he feel? See, for instance, in ancient India, supposing you wanted to criticize the philosophy, there was a philosopher named Adi Shankara. He didn't like some parts of Buddhism, but he said, I'm not going to criticize unless I spend 3 years as a Buddhist monk myself, learn everything, and then I'll come and criticize. So now he has a right to do it. He doesn't have any right to do it otherwise. So this is a theme that I want to understand. Once you try to get into the other person's situation, you are a better person, and that person, you can help them better. So the solution, the short-term solution, could be. I want to stay away from the politics, but the short-term solution is that our education system has to start getting away from theology and some of the philosophy which is based on theology. People don't realize that man is a sinner. Okay, partially correct. It's also correct partially that human beings are altruistic. That's the other end of the theme. So we're not all sinners. Yes, we are sinners, but we're also altruistic. It's false to assume that we pursue selfish goals all the time. It's false, because most mothers would take a bullet for their children. So obviously it's not about selfishness, okay? And so we have to understand that both themes are correct. We can't say, like Hobbes, the world is a jungle. Everybody's against everybody. Everybody's killing. So we have government to arbitrate between the two, all the jungly people fighting and killing each other. See, these are the wrong messages that we send to our children from day one in education. We have to explain to them, yes, that is one aspect. The other aspect is people who will do anything, not because of sense of sacrifice, but because they want to do it. They feel more at peace with it. I know this lady. I'm not religious. She's Christian. She's one of the most wonderful people I've ever met. She helps all the people of all races and everything all the time. And she is the happiest person. She's in her 70s, most wonderful person I've ever seen. So she can help them out because she feels good. This is the kind of theme somehow we need to develop in young children and get rid of our so-called secular philosophy. I'm not again. This is garbage. Secularism has a history from French Revolution on. Guess what happened? The French Revolution. Guess what happened to all the 12 people in the French Revolution? They all killed each other. Robespierre and Marat and Danton and all these guys. So obviously that theme of switching over to secularism didn't work either. So the point is here, very simple. We need for people to understand and enjoy and feel like if you're helping somebody else, it's not purely out of duty, it's because of your own self-love, because it's how you feel the best. Don't you feel the best when there's an old lady who she was crushed? You go help her out. I fell down on ice the other day, and I have a gray hair, so I couldn't get up, and some young man saw me, and he realized, oh, this guy's an older guy. He came over, he said, sir, can I help you? I said, yeah, please take me to my apartment. I can't get my balance. And he took me to my apartment, which was a block away, and I went in there, and I was fine. So I'm sure he felt very good helping me. These are the things that we have to accentuate when the children are going, not just preach to them. That's all I got to say.
Well, I can't agree more, but I want to point out something, and you should connect with people at any age. And as you say, we all have a soul. We're all human, but the cost behaviorally for a person that's 21 or 31 or 41 to change, it's not. They're not going to change much, and they're not going to change much emotionally. They're not going to change much. It's very hard when habits get embedded to change them. It's very hard to modify, even in a child, who we've said their personalities, not their intellect, their personalities are formed by the time they're 6, 8, 10 years old. It's very hard to change it, even a teenager, once that's happened. So from just a purely human investment point of view, those first years are so cherished. They're so beautiful, and to avoid them. And I know you don't agree with this, but I can say it point blank. I think we ought to reinstitute 407, which was a requirement in TANF, TANF, of Social Security, that children of single parent and single parent mothers be in the process of learning a job and also be in the process of getting in the workforce. And if that is unacceptable, we ought to have a date certain. And I would instruct the military to open up the military bases. I mean, we're all over the world trying to convince people to become Americans. These people need help with their children right here. And I would tell a mother on welfare that it's going to stop for certain in 3 months, and to please get into a 407 program or go to a military base and sign up. I think those kids would be more protected on a military base than they are in some of these neighborhoods that are rampant with drugs and things that are going on that are going to steer them in the wrong direction. So I wouldn't have a problem giving those two options and making it a time certain where the government stopped welfare. And also, I'll say there ought to be bonuses given to moms and dads and at least larger tax deductions for having children. Because as you pointed out, it's not even an Ishmael. It's not even an important thing today to have families. If we can reward moms and dads by giving them big deductions, and even for keeping their elderly parents at home, that should be done. We ought to go back to that family unit and use that to invest in our younger generation. That's my feeling. Now, you guys go ahead and jump in.
Ishmael, what do you have to say?
Yeah, no, I completely agree on all of that. Again, where it comes down to, and I love the philosopher and the economist in this conversation, and then someone who's in the world of business and private equity right now, because it's so interesting to me. And I'll just tell you a quick story. This morning, I supposed to have a meeting at 7 a.m. With our executive team, and we're going to discuss some big strategic topics. It's very difficult to get them all on the schedule. At about 6:10, my wife wakes up. She tells me, I'm sick. I have a temperature, et cetera, et cetera. You have to deal with the kids this morning. So 7 a.m. is when I get my children ready for school. And, she's not working. She usually takes care of it, but this morning she can't. She's physically unable to. I send an email to this group of executives, and our CEO responds about 20 minutes later, about 10 minutes before the meeting's supposed to start, and says, "Families first. We can reschedule this. Take care of your kids." That was the message right there. And I think that element of value matters. And as you mentioned, Tony, we need to incentivize it from a tax structure way, from just an overall way, empowering and encouraging parents from a financial perspective, but also, Arun, I think we really need to, as an American society. And again, I'm just thinking back to the last 30 years of my life and just some of the documentaries I've watched recently. We have stopped valuing the souls of people and who they are and putting ourselves in their shoes and actually understanding where people come from. And we're therefore unable to help, and we're therefore unable to value things beyond materialistic.
Well, you were growing up, you could see the change in what you're saying, the value of human life. I think Arun and I grew up 60s, 70s, 80s, and it started to transition. I think it came out of actually a lot of it came out of psychology. At the time, you had Freud and others coming up in the academic world, and eventually those ideas permeated out. But prior to that, the human life in in the United States was valued very highly, and there was nothing higher on it. But that started to change, I think, in the 80s and 90s as academic philosophies, um, including Sigmund Freud and others, started to permeate, leave academia, and come into society. Up till that time, uh, uh, an individual was a cherished, very high value thing. And I think since then, well, I mean, just the evidence is very clear that we've reduced the value of human beings. I mean, we've had abortions all along, but they've not been as socially acceptable as they are today. Now you have to do it in different states, but still, the stigma from years ago, as well as the stigma in many countries today, is not here in the United States. We have organ transplants for years. There was a unspoken word for cadaver. In other words, the person had to be dead before you took the organs out. That changed about 20 years ago in medicine. Unconsciousness now is the new state that you can remove a person's organs. God help you if they wake up in the middle of it. But
That's not.
you have you have you have evidence out there of changes in how society is viewing the value of human life, which Arun talked about from the point of view of the soul. Go ahead, Arun.
Those are fascinating things, and your suggestion about military, I had never thought of that as something novel. It may be. Let me ruminate over it, and I'll come up with my theme on that. It's a very interesting thing. That could be, I just have thought something similar to you, but you have a very good idea here. See, the people who are not non-productive and single mothers, there could be some kind of special corporations, and they could be manufacturing something or doing some stuff in which they're productive with the society. See, the biggest thing is this concept of calling them lazy is the worst. I have known people who are lazy as hell. You put them in right circumstances and they can work 10 or 20 hours a day, and vice versa. People who are very productive, you take them out of that, you put them in a welfare type of situation for 2 years, and they're worthless anymore. So it's not the solution. Blaming. See, the same person, I won't give you specific examples, but I know people who have done that, who were very productive and became zero, and people who were zero became very productive because the circumstances changed for them. So this is my thing. I'll keep going back to the philosophy from very early childhood. We need a very healthy environment, and if people have incorrect logic, will give you example of LeBron James. Look what happened to him. He's 1 in a million who came out of a single family with a teenage mom and became a great basketball player and a great human being. That's one. See, that's not how you do science. You have to have more evidence than anecdotal. So that's on the other hand, you can have anecdotal example. Now I'm going to stay away from politics. I'm not Republican, not Democrat. But one of the things about J.D. Vance, he emphasizes family so much because he had a terrible family life. His wife had a beautiful family life. Now he's seen that, and he is part of her family in a way too. He's seen the benefits of that, and now he wants his children to get that. His children are his wife, who's probably more accomplished than he is, quits her job because she wants to be a mom. She wants to make sure the kids are getting the mother to be there.
Arun, tell them about his wife, what she did. People aren't aware.
Yeah, so his wife is in the top of her class at Yale Law School.
Number one, right?
Yeah, his wife, and then she's got a master in philosophy from Oxford. She works for the most reputed law firm, making $1 million, considered to be super smart. And even Trump says she's smarter than Vance is. And with all these academic accomplishments, and as a lawyer, as one of the top lawyers, she quit her job when he became vice president as a candidate. And actually, when her first child was born, her mom, who's the dean at UCSD, dean of students, a very high position. She took a 1-year sabbatical to come and help her daughter have a child so he could have a healthy birth and see that. So people criticize her too. Now, you know, there's a lot of people criticize Usha Vance too. I mean, like I said, I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm going to stay out of that for now. Okay. The point is that a person like that understands how important it is to get the children a healthy family. And I think JD understands this probably better than the other. Look at LeBron James, another example. He had a shitty childhood, okay? What he does is he has a family, no scandals, no nothing. The greatest basketball player on earth, nothing. He's solely focused on his family. He, right after his game was over in Cleveland, he runs over to watch his son play in Akron. And when he was in 6th or 7th grade, that's the parent that you want, you know, because he's seen the other end. He wants his children to have a very healthy environment. So I'm just giving you some anecdotal examples where you can understand how people who have not had family and then had family realize how important it is. So I'm on the page with you.
And there is, you're right, there is a LeBron, a Ben Carson. There's a number of people, and they're very well broadcast and very well known, that came out of single parent and did very well. But statistically, they're not.
Yeah. Anecdotal evidence is the worst way to argue. Okay, so
absolutely. I think again, just the examples you gave there, the more we value them, the more we show them. I really think we'll have a benefit. Well, we're up at 40 minutes here. Do you want to preview some of the topics you think we can bring up over the next few weeks? I'm looking forward to this.
Ishmael, you preview next week's.
I'd like to. There's interesting articles I read, and I'll send it to our group and others who want them. And it's talking about it's a provocative title. So let's forget the title. It's a writer who I find very interesting. But it really is we're in a shifting world, and I think the question is, are we being sold out, or is this a new paradigm? I think exiting the post-World War II phase, there's about a 75-year era of stability, let's say, in a world order. Are we exiting out of that, and what's next? I think it's really interesting to see the approaches that are being taken today. So really excited about it. Again, provocative title, but real interesting insight. Compares the European, and you guys may know the term better than myself, but essentially after Napoleon till World War I, there was an understanding in Europe to avoid another Napoleon, and then it all broke during World War I. Are we in that stage again? So I think it'll be a real interesting topic. Look forward to it.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to talk about changes in power. We can talk also about types of wars. There are many wars. There are trade wars. There are sanction wars. We can talk about that too next week.
Absolutely.
So we'll talk about, because we are in some wars right now. We're not in a shooting war, but we are in some wars.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be our next week. And people like Thalidomys, who theorized 400 BC that the second biggest power will always, without exception, attack the leading power. That's China and the United States. So what do you think about the situation in the world today, which is next week's topic?
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be with you guys. And it's
what do you think about the safety in the world?
Safety in the world. Well, yeah. See, I mean, wars are going on. Hell, Ukraine, Gaza. What do you think that is? Okay, so these are not. It's just a situation that get to sleep properly at night and feel good about. You being so callous that you don't give a shit about all of this stuff. So, we're in quite a bit of trouble here, and we need to see the thing is we got to find short-term solutions, and we got to understand long-term. We got to have these people from a very young age develop critical thinking.
my belief and my maybe a takeaway for this first session is that we do have external enemies, but that we are right now today our own worst enemy, and we have to
100% agree with that.
we
100%.
have to get ourselves back to a more stable environment, and I think we're our
Absolutely.
worst enemy. I think we're doing ourselves in.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we will chat next week. Thank you all.
All
Listen,
right.
great meeting you.
Bye bye. And,
Great
Nice
meeting
seeing you
you.
again, Tony. It was a pleasure to do this.